Welcome to the Feeling Elfish podcast. I'm your host, Austin Lane, and this is a special episode. As those who have been listening are aware, this podcast has really been dedicated to interviewing other people and hearing about their businesses and what they're up to and how they're going about trying to fulfill the purpose that they feel within themselves, whether in business or volunteering efforts or not, but whatever that looks like. But I'm going to do some of these every once in a while just to kind of let you know what's going on here at this firm and what is rattling around in my mind and the direction we might go. Just kind of give you a glimpse behind the curtain of what it is like running a wealth management company. At least me running a wealth management company, which is probably different than most. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm not sure I have complete mastery over the way I want to communicate it just yet. But I think that's the beauty of podcasts, right? They don't have to be perfect. They can just be people talking about where they are feeling the pull and that tug and that passion. And we're turning 5 next month with July. So July 23rd will be our 5th anniversary being in business. And I cannot say thank you enough to my clients and to the people that have believed in me and the community, just people who have really been part of this, have been encouraged, even an encouraging comment, just it has been incredibly meaningful for me. And the impact is almost impossible to quantify. The impact to my family, the impact to the marketplace, the community, the clients, of course, like it has been very meaningful to be able to exit a more rigid approach to doing this business in corporate America and then opening a firm that is able to have a little bit more flexibility in serving people. And I think that's worked out well. I think that's been a big win. I really do. So I just first would be remiss to not acknowledge the support that has rallied around me and this firm as we've survived 5 years and really thrived. And that thriving, which again is a massive blessing, has led to a lot of conversations around like, well, what's next? What do you do next? You hire people? Do you move offices? How are you going to create scale and space to be able to bring in more clients? Do you right size? Do you start to look at setting minimums? Do you start to do all those things? And I think there's an internal tension that has existed within me for really since the beginning of this industry, but all of this now, this coming out of 5 years, looking at the next 5 years creates an urgency, whether I want it or not. It just kind of exists because within myself and then within my immediate external circles, the very normal questions exist of what's next for the company, what's next for the firm, where are you going? What are you going to do? What is the next step? And I think one of the things that bothers me about this industry, and maybe this is true of all industries, but this is pretty much, my life's work has been in this industry, is so much of the dialogue and internal conversations are around profitability. And businesses have to be profitable. I don't dispute that. That's true. But I think that the way they go about being profitable indicates their real value set and the way that they believe and have convictions and the things that matter to them. And so as I've had conversations inside the industry, you buy a book of business. Do you do like that's a very normal one. Do you want to buy a book of business? I even saying that it bothers me because are you for sale? Like let's say your financial assets, your accounts, your IRAs, whatever, they're with ABC Investments on Main Street, right? And your advisor decides that they've had enough of the business. Are you for sale? Like, and I get businesses do this all the time. They merge. M&A is a whole thing, right? But I don't think that you are ever for sale. Like this specific you. Are you for sale? Like who gets to determine where you have your assets and financial planning? Shouldn't that be an active decision by you and not a passive one based on the enterprise decisions of your current advisor looking to exit the business? I just don't, there's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way. I just don't think people are for sale. I just don't think that the most important things to them, and we talk about this, right? Like family, faith, finances, whatever. Money is at the top of the list of things that are most important to people, but it's not money itself. It is what money represents. And money represents potential, passions, purpose. That's what it represents. So it's not that is the money. It is the summation of the potential of your life aggregated into a couple accounts that is so meaningful. And I think that at all times, people should be making active decisions about where their value is placed. And I think that's one of the challenges I have with this industry is most people are making passive decisions. They're just with their guy because they've been with their guy for 30 years. Or this is the more convenient option, or this, I don't know, they sold the business, so I guess we're with this guy. Like that's not, it just rubs me the wrong way. That among other things, it just feels like this industry is it's just tough. It could be better, should be better, can be better, but it's going to require change that has to happen both internally, yes, but it has to be demanded from the external sources, clients like yourself, people like yourself. And let me give you an example of what I'm thinking. Um, I I mean, I will do wealth management forever. I mean, barring some dramatic change, actually managing clients' money, doing financial planning will always be a piece of what I do. Always. That will be the main driver of what I do. But I think that all people, even when your end point is X, right? Like ultimately you do this, you do wealth management, or you put out fires, or you respond to crises, or you sell widgets. Like that is all the ultimate identifiable transaction where there is money exchange and for services or goods or whatever. That's all important. But there are a million things we do outside of that specific transaction that indicates what we believe as business people. That indicates how we want to interact with our communities. And so I I like bringing on clients, of course. I like winning new business, as we would call it. Like that new relationship is always welcomed and good experience because it really feels like you're able to make a big difference in people's lives. But tether their goals to their resources and really just give enlightenment around what they can do and what the purpose can of their life can be done with the resources and decisions they have to make can be. It's just it's a lot of fun, but in that moment, I don't think it's the money that's that fun. Money's great, but it's not the money that really I think should be the driver of how we're making decisions. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you are not determining for yourselves what success is at the onset of an adventure or decision or pursuit, it will be defined by other people. And those other people are probably going to define it as success by amount of money gained. And that is a very dangerous game in which you're never going to find the full satisfaction you're looking for because your purpose is not intertwined in pure profits. So I'm saying I'm lingering a little bit on this point, but we always bring on clients. If you're interested in financial planning, investment management, of course, we'd love the opportunity to talk with you, no doubt. But I think that I want to kind of make this declaration of where the business is going. And so let me tell you kind of why and build this up as slowly and painfully as possible. I was kind of been bothered by a few things in the last few days that have brought this into clarity because as people ask me, what's your business plan? I don't feel like, I don't want to, I don't, well, I only work with left-handed urologists who have a network. Like, come on, man. This business is about people. People need financial education to be empowered to make sure that they are living their life to its highest potential. That is a hard, stone cold fact that we ignore on a regular basis because we place our own desires above people in this industry writ large. That's a fact. And I'm tired of that. And I met with some folks and I've had this conversation a million times in my career. That's an exaggeration, but a lot. And they met with a financial advisor. They gave them all the money they had, just a couple 100,000. I mean, it's not nothing. It's a good amount of money. And they're on the brink of retirement, right? This will be very generic because it's a podcast. Brink of retirement, and I'm just looking at them, and like they've just been taken, man. Like I'm sure they signed all the paperwork, right? Like there's no recourse, really. Like they signed it all. They decided to put it in an insurance product, is what it was. And I would make a strong argument that it was not in their best interest at all. But they did it. It is what it is. These are the decisions. We didn't engage. And I didn't really give a ton of like, you're just listening and understanding what they're trying to do. But they come with these decisions that have already been made. And you're just looking at it like, man, if this was my mom, right? If this was my parents that did this, I would be just fired up. Like I would be shaking that tree. I'd be considering things and I don't know what could really be done at this point. But it's just questionable, I guess is how I would define that. It's just questionable. And it just kills me, man. It just kills me to see people convinced to do things that, in my opinion, are not in their best interest at all. And I could go hard on that for a long time. But they do it because, well, they're friends or they do this or we go to church together or whatever. And it just kills me to see people who end up making decisions. And I'm kind of being a little cagey around describing this because all communication has to go through my compliance and supervision department, and trying to measure how I want to say this because I feel very strongly about how this went down for these clients. But I'm also not trying to get sued. When you make a decision that's not based on your own understanding, and you make it based on, well, it seems like he knows what he's talking about, you just leave the door wide open for somebody to act on your behalf in a way that benefits them the most. And maybe it'll benefit you too. And maybe they can make an argument from that saying that, that benefits you is in fact in their best interest. But there's a lot of subjectivity in that is it or is it, it can be a very challenging thing to wrestle with. But I gotta say, I have been in this industry long enough, and I've had enough meetings like this where people in their 60s or 70s bring me what has happened in their life. They bring me the outcome of the decisions they've made and the things that they've been sold by whatever financial advisor or in many cases, insurance people. And they say, "What do I do with this?" And I just, "What can you do with this?" And it it just it just kills me, man. It really does, because I feel like if I could have talked to them before, and it doesn't have to be me, but if anybody could have educated them before and provided proper context around all the decisions they made, I just feel like they wouldn't have made that decision. And there's real consequences. There's real consequences to financial decisions that are made. And there's a line in Moneyball where Brad Pitt says, like, I hate to lose. I hate losing. Like, I hate losing more than I love to win. And I've kind of reached that point. Like, I just feel like my soul can't take more meetings where people went to a fancy steak dinner because they got a postcard in the mail and it said, come learn about blah, 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 whatever little one liner. And somebody was there to sling high commission products potentially. And, uh, and I don't think there's a lot of care given to really being considerate of whether or not they are taking into account all of the options available to them. And it just worries me. It just makes me feel like people are not being provided education that's required to be able to make the best decisions on behalf of themselves. That they're outsourcing their agency to people who maybe don't always in fact act in the best interest, even though we're all supposed to. It just concerns me. And these conversations, they just haunt me. And again, you got to be kind of careful with the way that you talk about that as a financial advisor. You got to be the way that you're careful with the way you share that with clients. But it just haunts me. I can think of, a handful of interactions I've had in my life when it's just like, gosh, man, what I wouldn't give to have just a real like put your swords down, honest conversation with the other side of that transaction, the financial advisor, insurance agent that sold them whatever they have. Like, what I wouldn't give to be able to record a conversation with them and myself and just ask them the questions that I wish the clients asked them before they sold them that policy or whatever. And I was that was last week, and over the weekend I was at an event up in Banderas. I sit on this board for the Bandera Natural History and Art Museum. It's a cute little museum, by the way. If you're up in Bandera, I would give it a visit. It's a good time. And one of the guys who was working there, I hadn't met him before. We were just talking, exchanging pleasantries, and he asked me what I did. And he said, "Oh, I'm actually getting in wealth management. Or I've been in wealth management, but I'm looking to get some licenses, some series licenses." And just for those who don't know, by the way, there's a website called Broker Check, and you can look up all financial advisors, see what licenses they have, what their experience is, if there's any disclosures or complaints, things like that. And I would encourage you to do that. But one of the things it shows is series licenses you get through FINRA. FINRA and the SEC are main regulatory supervision bodies, and FINRA has a site. So if you're curious about financial advisor, I would encourage you to know that all of our information is out there, and you should and could go evaluate us that way. Just make sure that that we are in fact submitted to regulatory approval and authority. Anyway, he's talking, and he comes around to saying that he does work. He's considering working with this firm, and I know them just adjacent. And um, I have, I've interacted with them directly maybe twice, maybe once or twice, and they're fine, right? Like this is going to be one of those things that's just going to be subjective, like I said. But I have real issues with the way things sometimes are presented in this industry. I think that again, like a lot of things can be made to sound good. A lot of things can be made to a good sales pitch should really should make it sound like, oh, this is a logical progression. I should sign the paperwork here. But sales in this industry without education is malpractice, in my opinion. And there's just not a lot of intentionality around education. This is getting to the point is I think that for an industry that asks for the trust and resources of people, we need to be better at education. That's just, I don't see any way around that. The reason we're not is because you don't get paid to educate. You get paid to sell. All industries are that way. That's not unique to financial advice. That's true of all industries. So how do we do that? And I'm building to kind of my point here. But I used to think of myself like as, I'm gonna throw out basic information. I'm gonna create videos that are, entertaining or silly. I'm gonna create videos that talk about some of the points of wealth management. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, whatever. And people will see like, oh, okay, he's actually providing education. Let me lean into that and let me go find, let me work with him on that regard. And that does happen. That does happen to a large extent. But I gotta say, having some of these interactions and, approaching 40 years old, been in the business, a while, like I think something is happening with myself where I'm no longer content to just say, okay, well, whoever responds, and let's just get like I really think this industry needs change. Like it needs to be shaken up. It needs to be disrupted because the way it is cannot. It needs to have change for the better of clients and people who trust us to help navigate their financial lives with them. It shouldn't be an outsource. It should be a partnership. It should be a partnership with a competent financial advisor who is just as invested in your education as they are anything else. And I've thought about how do I do that, right? How do I create this educational environment? And I am a big fan of history. I talk about history a lot because it's so relevant to today. And I've been listening to this podcast on historical figures, and one that stuck with me is Hannibal of Carthage. He was a general, like 300-ish BC, and he took Carthage from kind of this like, yeah, like kind of a player to like a feared global opponent of Rome. Like Romans talked about Hannibal like the boogeyman for hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years after his dominance. Really, I guess the only way to describe it. Hannibal was outgunned, outmanned. Like he had no direct advantage when it came to open conflict with Rome, except for just deep passion of feeling like Rome was not a good not a good player in the world. And Hannibal was mostly raised in Spain, and he became a leader of the army as a young man. And he finally had this opportunity to face Rome on the battlefield. There was this conflict that happened in Spain, and it was unclear over who had the jurisdiction and who was in the wrong. But Rome felt that they had to answer to what had happened. And Hannibal cannot, like, he's an underdog. And all underdog stories have this. They all have an element of this, where when Rome deploys, they deploy on three fronts. They bring the whole army out. That's how, once you get big enough, that's what you use to squash any kind of rebellion or counterpoints or any opposition to anything. Is you're just so big, you just extinguish the momentum of other people, of other groups, in order to be able to retain control. That's just how it works. That's life. That's how all things work. Anyway, so Hannibal, he hears about this and he takes his army, tens of thousands of people, war elephants, cavalry, infantry, and he basically sprints. He just sprints from Spain through Gaul, down through Western Europe, through Switzerland, the Alps in winter. So like he's doing things that nobody does. And then he just emerges. He just shows up in northern Rome, and it cost him. It cost him a ton of troops. A lot of them passed along the way. A lot of them died from exposure, illness, sickness. A lot of them deserted. He lost a lot of his war elephants, which is crazy to me that he had war elephants. And he just got to Rome. He understood that when you were under conviction and you were living your life by a code, a passion, a purpose, that is a serious thing. and that you are willing to compromise a lot of things in pursuit of that ultimate revelation, of that ultimate truth, of that ultimate realization of your potential. And all, in my experience, all great military leaders have a moment where they say, this is my goal. This is my clearly, singularly defined goal. I am moving towards it at a breakneck pace. Speed, surprise, and audacity will be my advantage. Think of the audacity of George Washington crossing the Delaware on Christmas. The nerve of that guy. I mean, every general has some sort of hallmark of this. And that word audacity has been bouncing around in my mind for a long time. How to be audacious. What does audacity drive? Audacity is what creates disruption. That's the main ingredient of it. And as a financial advisor, how do I leverage audacity in a way that benefits this industry and this culture, in a way that drives progress and positive engagement from people? Again, it's all about people. And I think that what I'm coming around to is Green Wealth Management will always be a financial advisory firm. We always do financial planning, but we are going to focus on education. Like money or not, we are going to focus on education, whether that is in partnership with school districts, which we already do to an extent, whether that is complimentary seminars, webinars. I've thought about doing office hours, like Zoom office hours. I remember in college, and you could just, your professor say, I'll be in my office these 3 hours this week. Come by, ask anything. Might do something like that, might create more content. But here's what I'm realizing is it's not about me and an arrogance of saying, you need to hear what I have to say. But this industry and the people it serves and purports to serve need to hear counter arguments. They have to hear it. They have to hear different ways about thinking about things so that they can create a more dynamic understanding and be engaged and empowered more in their financial planning and resource management. That is what has to happen in this industry. And so Grain Wealth Management coming out of this 5 years is all about education going forward. That's where we're going to be. Clients will come as they see us and people feel inspired to work with us, but we're not the only financial advisory in town. And we understand that. We embrace that. That's true. But what we can do is pour ourselves into creating a culture, an environment that drives an understanding and a place where people feel comfortable and confident in asking the questions that will shape the behavior of financial advisors for the better. That's our goal. That's our business plan. And that sounds very pie in the sky. And it sounds like, well, I don't know how you're really going to make money in that. I'll worry about that later, right? Like today, what I know is education, culture, leaving this place better than I found it, leaving this industry better than I found it. And whatever the actual outcome of that is, whether great or small, that is our purpose. The last thing I'll just leave you with here is a lot of these conversations I have with financial advisory people and with business people are constantly asking me how we're going to, how are we fitting into this business? How are we going to continue to grow and fit in and model the success of firms before us into our business? And I just want to be super crystal clear. I am not here to fit into this business. I'm here to change it. We exist for agents of change and people who know there's more and people who want to be empowered and really results are not guaranteed. Life is not fair. Things happen. But for those who want to relentlessly pursue the potential of their passion and see as much happen as possible, that's the firm we exist to be. And so no matter the scope we get to engage with you, just know that that is our ultimate business model. And we hope and pray and look forward to the opportunity to see that realized. Thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.